Hello, sleepy soul. Welcome to Midnight Talks. I'm your storyteller tonight, your host in the dark. If you enjoy the tales I whisper, don't forget to subscribe so I don't get lost in this endless crowd. Now, let's begin our story. Have you ever scrolled through Craigslist late at night? You tell yourself it's harmless, a digital marketplace, a place to find something cheap or make a little cash. But if you stay long enough, if you look deep enough, you start to realize something. Not everything listed there is meant to be found. Some posts aren't selling anything at all. They're waiting. I used to love Craigslist. It felt honest, old school, simple, human. I sold furniture, found gigs, bought a used phone once it was part of everyday life. Until I started noticing the patterns. The usernames changed, the cities changed, but the language stayed the same. Same phrases, same structure, same sense of urgency. Like someone, or something, was copying the tone of real people over and over again. At first, I thought I was overthinking it. Then I saw a job post that looked familiar. Word for word, the same as one I'd answered years ago. Only this time, the contact name was different, and that job, that gig, didn't end well. That's when I started collecting stories from friends, strangers, police reports, old screenshots, people who'd answered the wrong ad, people who almost didn't make it out, and people who did, but never really came back the same. You see, Craigslist isn't just a marketplace, it's a mirror, reflecting who's out there. And sometimes it reflects what shouldn't exist at all. These are the stories I found. Stories buried under help wanted, for sale, and free pickup. Each one started with a click and ended in something else entirely. If you've ever thought about answering a late night ad, maybe you should listen first, because these aren't urban legends. These aren't exaggerations. Every name, every message, every meeting, it all began the same way, with a stranger, a few words, and a promise that sounded too good to be true. So tonight, I'll tell you what happened to them. The secret shopper who learned the cost of curiosity. The babysitter who walked into someone else's game. The seller who found herself being hunted. The man who followed a free TV into something much darker. And the house that kept calling people back. No matter how many times the number changed, I'm not telling these to scare you. I'm telling them because they're real. And because somewhere out there, another ad just went live. Someone will see it, click it, and think it's just another post. But if you ever recognize the name Rick, do yourself a favor. Close the tab, because some buyers never stop looking, and some sellers never really left. When I lost my job, I thought the worst thing I'd have to face was my own reflection. The silence of the apartment, the weight of unpaid rent, the dull hum of daytime TV filling the space where ambition used to live. I was scrolling through Craigslist one afternoon, half out of boredom, half out of desperation, when I found a post titled, "Secret Shopper Needed, Immediate Start, $300 per assignment." It sounded easy enough. Walk into a store, buy something cheap, report your experience. The listing said they were testing employee behavior and professionalism. I sent an email, attached my name, my number, and within an hour someone replied. The message was short. "You're approved. First assignment, Grayson's Market, corner of Pine and Miller. Evaluate employee Miles Carter. Be detailed. Submit by tomorrow." There was something strange about how quickly they responded, but at that point I didn't care. $300 for a 10-minute trip? I could ignore a few red flags for that. The store was quiet when I went in. A small, independent grocery, fluorescent lights flickering, shelves half-stocked. Behind the counter was a young guy, maybe late 20s, with a kind of weary look, like someone who'd been told too many times to smile. "Hey," he said, "can I help you find something?" "Just looking," I answered. Pretending to browse, I bought a bottle of water, paid in cash, and left. It felt silly, like playing detective in a bad commercial. But when I got home, I wrote my report, as detailed as I could. Cleanliness, 7 out of 10. Employee politeness, 5 out of 10. Eye contact, inconsistent. I submitted it and forgot about it. 2 days later, I received an email. "Good work, your report was helpful. Payment processed. Note, employee Miles Carter has been terminated for repeated poor performance." I read that line twice, terminated. Because of me. I didn't know how to feel. Guilty, I guess. But I told myself it wasn't my fault. I was just doing the job they paid me for. A week passed. Then the text started. The first one came at 11:43 p.m. "You ruined my life." No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I deleted it, blocked the sender, tried to shake it off. 2 nights later, another message, this time from a different number. "Did they pay you enough to destroy someone?" My hands went cold. I didn't reply, but I couldn't sleep. By the end of the week, the messages had spread. Instagram DMs, even a voicemail. Each time the name was different, but the tone was the same. Angry, personal, and always mentioning Miles. One night, my boyfriend Aaron was staying over. We were eating takeout. When I told him about it, he shrugged it off. "Craigslist creeps," he said. "Probably some loser trolling you." That night around 2 a.m., we heard a noise outside the apartment. Soft, deliberate, like someone dragging something across the porch. Aaron went to the window, pulled the curtain back, and froze. Standing under the streetlight was a man in a dark hoodie. Still, silent, just watching our door. Aaron banged on the window, shouted, but the man didn't flinch. He just tilted his head slightly, like he was studying us. Then he turned, walked away, and disappeared down the street. We called the police. They came, took a report, told us it was probably a random prowler, but when I mentioned the name Miles Carter, one of the officers looked up. "You mean from Grayson's Market?" he asked. "Yeah. You know him?" He hesitated. "He used to work there. Got fired a few weeks ago. Heard he wasn't taking it well." I didn't say anything, but inside I felt the world tilt. For the next few days, I barely left the apartment. I started checking locks twice, 3 times a night. Aaron insisted I let him stay over more often. It made me feel safer. Until that Friday. I came home from a grocery run and noticed something off about the front door. The doormat was crooked and the key, the one I always left hanging inside, was missing. Aaron wasn't home yet. I called him immediately, voice shaking. He told me to stay outside, said he'd be there in 10 minutes. But before he could arrive, I heard movement inside the house. It was faint. Footsteps. Slow, steady, pacing. Then from the other side of the door, a man's voice whispered, "You wrote about me." My knees went weak. I backed away, heart hammering. Aaron pulled up just as the door opened. Miles stepped out. Same hoodie, same tilt of the head. Only now he was holding something. A kitchen knife, Aaron shouted, rushed him, and they struggled. I screamed, grabbed my phone, called 911. Miles broke free and bolted, vanishing into the night before the sirens arrived. When the police caught him 2 streets over, he was still carrying the knife. He told them he just wanted to talk, said we had ruined everything. He knew my name, my building, even my schedule. When they searched his phone, they found screenshots, my report, my emails, even photos of my apartment building taken from across the street. He'd been watching me for weeks. They said he got my information from the company I'd been working for. Only, there was no company. The emails came from a throwaway domain, no records, no tax forms, no HR, just a single contact listed as admin. After the arrest, I tried to reach out. I wanted to understand how it happened, but the domain was gone. Every message deleted, like it never existed. Aaron told me to let it go, and I tried. I really did. But some nights when I check my inbox, I still see the same subject line pop up at the bottom of my spam folder. New assignment available, secret shopper evaluation. It always disappears before I can open it, always from a different address. And lately, when I walk past Grayson's Market, the one that closed months ago, I sometimes see the faint flicker of light through the dusty window, like someone inside is still working, still waiting for a report. After what happened to the secret shopper girl, I told myself I'd stay off Craigslist for good, but desperation makes people forget their promises, and rent doesn't wait for fear to fade. So when I found an ad that said, babysitter needed tonight, $200 cash, easy work, I didn't even hesitate. It was posted under the name Tom and Chloe M. The description was simple. 2 children ages 6 and 9, parents going out for the evening, must arrive by 7 p.m. No interview, no background check, just an address and an emoji smile at the end of the message. The house was about 30 minutes outside the city, down a quiet road lined with tall oaks. It looked normal, neat, suburban, the kind of place where people leave porch lights on out of habit. When I knocked, a man opened the door. He was tall, late 30s maybe, wearing a sweater and jeans. He smiled, but something about his eyes made me uneasy. Not angry, not sad, just detached. "You must be Rachel," he said. "I'm Tom." The house behind him was silent. No sound of kids, no second voice. "Chloe and the children went to pick up pizza," he explained quickly, as if reading my thoughts. "They'll be back any minute. Come in, please." I stepped inside. It smelled faintly of cleaning products, but under that, something sour like damp carpet. The furniture was too perfect, too staged, as if no one actually lived there. He offered me water, which I declined, and gestured toward the couch. Then he started talking, asking me about school, my last babysitting job, whether I was good with secrets. That last question made me laugh awkwardly. He didn't. When I asked about the kids, he said, "They're good kids. Quiet." Then he paused, tilting his head slightly. "You'll meet them soon." Minutes passed. I checked the time. 7:25. Still no sign of Chloe. Still no sound from upstairs. When I asked if I could see where the kids' rooms were, he hesitated, just for a moment, and then nodded. "Of course," he said softly. "This way." He led me down a narrow hallway. The walls were covered in framed photos, families smiling, birthdays, vacations. But all the faces were blurred, not pixelated, physically blurred, like someone had dragged their finger through the wet ink before it dried. I stopped in front of one. "Who are these?" I asked. He didn't look. "Old tenants," he said. Then he opened a door to the right. The room was dark, lit only by a nightlight shaped like a cloud. 2 small beds, toys arranged neatly on a shelf, but no clothes, no backpacks, no signs of life. Before I could say anything, he spoke again. "Chloe's gonna be late. he said, his voice lower now. Would you mind checking something for me? Downstairs, the basement light's been acting up. Every instinct screamed no, but his tone had shifted, firmer, expectant. And I didn't want to seem rude. He led me to the basement door, handed me a flashlight, and smiled. It's right at the bottom, he said. Just pull the chain. The stairs creaked as I went down. The air got colder, heavier. When I reached the bottom, I saw the light bulb hanging from a cord. I reached up, pulled the chain. Nothing. Then I heard it. A click, like a door closing above me. I turned. The basement door was shut. Footsteps echoed overhead. Slow, steady, then silence. I called out, "Tom?" No answer. My phone had no signal. I tried the door. Locked. Panic crawled up my spine. The basement was almost empty except for a workbench, a metal chair, and, in the far corner, a pile of plastic bins. I opened one. Inside were dolls, hundreds of them, all dressed like children. Pajamas, school uniforms, little shoes, each one with its face scratched out. My breath caught. Then I noticed something else. Photos taped to the wall, dozens of them, each of a woman sitting in a chair in the same basement, some smiling, some crying. One of them was me. The photo had been taken that night. My same outfit, same hair, which meant someone had been watching me from the moment I walked in. I ran to the door and pounded, screaming for help. No answer. Then faintly from upstairs came a voice, high-pitched, a child's giggle. For a second I thought maybe the kids were real. Maybe they could help, I shouted again. The laughter stopped. Then another sound replaced it. Heavy footsteps, coming down the stairs. The beam of a flashlight appeared at the top step. It swayed side to side, too slow, too deliberate. I pressed myself into the corner, heart slamming in my chest. When the light reached the bottom, it stopped moving. Then Tom's voice said quietly, "I told you they're quiet." At that moment, a loud knock shook the front door above us. Someone was outside, pounding hard, yelling something I couldn't make out. Tom froze. Then he cursed under his breath and ran back up the stairs. The basement door slammed shut. I didn't think. I grabbed the metal chair, swung it against the small window near the ceiling until the glass shattered. The opening was barely wide enough, but I squeezed through, cutting my arm on the way out. Outside, a car's headlights blinded me. A woman was standing next to it, shouting my name, "Rachel, get in!" It was my friend Jenna. I'd texted her the address earlier just in case. We drove until we hit the main road. When we called the police, they searched the house. No sign of Tom, no Chloe, no kids. The furniture was there, but the photos, the dolls, the bins, all gone. Even the basement window I'd broken had been replaced. The officer told me the property was listed as vacant, had been for almost 6 months. The name on the mailbox didn't match anyone in the county. I changed my number, moved cities, tried to forget. But 2 months later, while setting up my new phone, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey Rachel, it's Chloe. Thanks for helping with the kids last time. Would you be available this Friday?" I froze. The message was followed by another, this one from a different number. "Hi, it's Tom and Chloe. Same rate as before? The kids miss you." Same phrasing, same smiling emoji at the end. I blocked both. Then another message came. From my new phone's email app, under hidden contacts. "You never came back down." Every time I get a random spam text now, I check the sender name twice. Because sometimes when I scroll to the bottom, it still says Tom and Chloe M. And somewhere, in some other city, another ad just went up. "Babysitter needed tonight. Easy work. $200 cash. Would you like me to move? After what happened with that babysitting job, I told myself I'd never use Craigslist again. But fear fades faster than bills do. And by the end of that year, I was broke again. This time trying to sell my old Honda CR-V to make rent. It was a decent car, nothing special. I posted a few photos, set the price low, and within an hour I got a message. Hey, is the Honda still available? Can I see it tonight? The name was Tony. He wanted to meet around 10 p.m. after his shift at the hospital. I hesitated. It was late, but his profile looked normal. He even sent a photo. A man in scrubs smiling. Sure, I replied. I told myself I'd meet him in the parking lot outside my apartment. Public, safe, neutral ground. He showed up right on time. Tall, clean-cut, polite. He asked all the usual questions. Mileage, maintenance, title. Then he asked, mind if I take it for a quick spin? I agreed, handed him the keys, and got into the passenger seat. The drive started normal. Small talk about work, weather, gas prices. But then he turned off the main road. This isn't the way back, I said. He smiled faintly. Shortcut, he said. My stomach dropped. I glanced at the dashboard. The speed was creeping up. Hey, I said, you can drop me off here. I'll walk back. He didn't respond. His knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. I reached for the door handle, ready to jump, when he suddenly braked hard. The car screeched to a stop in the middle of an empty street. He turned to me slowly. Why are you selling? He asked. What? The car, he said. Why are you selling it? I need the money. He nodded, eyes fixed on mine. Yeah, we all do. Then just as suddenly he smiled again. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. Go ahead and drive us back. He handed me the keys. Calm, casual, like nothing had happened. I didn't ask questions. I drove back to the complex, parked, and got out before the engine even stopped running. He stood there in the shadows watching me. You're lucky, he said softly. Some buyers aren't as polite. Then he turned and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. Until the next night around 1:30 a.m., I was in bed when I heard a faint noise, a car engine outside. At first I ignored it. Then I realized it hadn't moved in minutes. I got up, peeked through the blinds. My old Honda was parked in the same spot, but a car was idling just across from it, headlights off. I could barely make out the shape of someone inside just sitting there. I watched for a while, trying to convince myself it wasn't Tony. Then the figure stepped out. It was him. Same height, same jacket. He walked slowly toward my building, glancing up at the windows. I backed away from the glass and grabbed my phone. By the time I called the police, the car outside was gone. They told me to call again if he came back. The next day I took down the Craigslist post. But that night I got a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't have ended the listing. It came with a photo, taken from the parking lot. I was visible through the window. Sitting on my couch, I called the police again. They said they'd send a patrol car. But before it arrived, someone buzzed my apartment intercom. Yeah, I said, trying to sound calm. A man's voice crackled through. Delivery for the Honda. I froze. I didn't order anything. He didn't answer. Then I heard footsteps, heavy ones, coming up the stairwell. I ran to the door, locked the deadbolt, pressed my back against it. The steps stopped just outside. Then a soft knock. Tony, I whispered. I didn't even mean to say it out loud, but I knew it was him. The knocking got louder, then more frantic. Finally, silence. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, the hallway was empty. but the security guard showed me the camera feed. Tony had been inside the building he'd entered behind another tenant. The footage showed him walking straight to my floor. No hesitation. They searched the area and found him 2 buildings away, trying to pry open a ground floor window. He told them he just wanted to talk, that we had a connection. They arrested him, found a knife in his jacket pocket. When they searched his car, they found printed directions to my apartment, my Craigslist ad, and notes scribbled on a napkin. Lives alone, ground floor, brown Honda, apartment 3B. He hadn't been interested in the car at all. The ad was a trap, a way to get inside my life. Afterward, the detective said something that stuck with me. "This isn't the first time we've seen his name," he said. "Tony's a fake. We think he's used dozens of names across different states." They never found out where the photo of me came from. My blinds were always closed, but sometimes when I turn off the lights, I see faint reflections in the glass. A silhouette I don't recognize. I sold the car eventually, in person through a dealer. No more Craigslist, no more strangers. But a few months later, I got an email from an address I didn't know. Subject line: "Still interested in the Honda?" The message had no text, just an attachment, a photo of my apartment building, taken from the same angle as before. I deleted it immediately. But every time I walk to my car now, I still check the mirrors before I start the engine, because sometimes I swear I see headlights following me, turning when I turn, slowing when I slow, until they disappear into the dark. And every time I open my inbox, I half expect to see that same message again. Still interested in the Honda? It started with a post that seemed too good to be true. Free 50-inch TV, must pick up tonight. The photo showed a big flat screen, still clean, cables neatly coiled beside it. No cracks, no scratches. Just sitting there in a dimly lit living room, like it was waiting for someone. I was moving into a new apartment that weekend, so a free TV sounded like fate. The post said, "Located just off Mill Road. Please come after 9 p.m. Text before arrival." I didn't even question it. I texted the number, got a quick reply. "Sure thing, door's unlocked. Come in, take it. I'll be upstairs." It was strange, but I told myself people do that all the time with giveaways. So I drove out there. The neighborhood was quiet, all single-story houses, most with lights off. Number 46 had its porch light flickering weakly, like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or not. I parked, walked up to the door, and sure enough, it was unlocked. Inside smelled faintly of mold and old wood. The TV was there, just like in the photo big. Black screen, dust-free, almost too clean compared to everything else. "Hello," I called out. No answer. I waited, listening. Upstairs, I thought I heard faint movement, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. Then silence. I told myself, just grab the TV and go. As I lifted it, the screen flickered. Just once. Like static crawling over the surface. I froze, staring at it. Then it went dark again. Probably just leftover charge, I thought. I carried it out, set it in my trunk, and drove home. By the time I set it up in my apartment, it was nearly midnight. I plugged it in, pressed the power button, and the screen lit up instantly, but it didn't go to a menu. No input screen, just a grainy black and white feed, like a live camera. At first, I thought it was a reflection or some test signal, but then I realized what I was looking at. It was a room, a small living room, with a single couch and a flickering lamp, and someone was sitting there, a man, facing directly toward the camera. or toward me. He didn't move, didn't blink, just sat perfectly still, hands on his knees. I tried to change the input, but every button just made the screen fuzz for a moment before snapping back to that same feed. I unplugged the cable. Still there. The image wouldn't go away, even with no connection, like the TV didn't care whether it was hooked to anything or not. Finally, I yanked the cord from the wall. The screen went black. I sat there breathing hard, telling myself I was tired, that it was just some weird glitch. But when I went to bed an hour later, I woke up to the sound of static. The TV had turned itself on, and this time, the man wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing closer to the camera, so close that I could see the texture of his skin. Gray, uneven, like dried clay. His lips moved slightly, but there was no sound. I unplugged it again. Then I took the TV outside to the dumpster behind my building and left it there. The next morning it was gone. I assumed someone else had taken it. That night I heard a knock at my door. 3 knocks. Slow, measured. I looked through the peephole. No one. When I opened the door, something was sitting on the floor. The TV, no note, no explanation. Just sitting there like it had followed me home. I didn't touch it this time. I dragged it down to the basement storage and locked it behind the wire cage. But every night after that, I started hearing faint sounds coming from below. A low hum, then static, then voices, just barely audible under the floorboards. Whispers, not words I could understand, just the shape of speech. After 3 nights, I finally went down to check. The basement light was flickering, and the air smelled burned, like metal and ozone. When I reached the cage, the TV was on again. No power cord, no outlet nearby. But the screen glowed faintly, showing that same living room again. Only this time, the camera was aimed at the couch, and there was a woman sitting there, her back to the camera, still as stone. I turned to leave, but froze on the far wall of the feed. I could see something new, a mirror, and in the mirror's reflection, I saw myself, standing in the basement watching the TV. I ran. I left the building that night and stayed at a friend's place. When I came back the next morning, the basement was flooded. A pipe had burst overnight, shorting everything out. The maintenance guy said the TV was completely fried, beyond repair. He hauled it off to the dump. I wanted to believe it was over. But that night, my friend, the one whose place I'd stayed at, sent me a text. "Hey, weird question. Did you leave your TV here?" He attached a photo. It was the same model, same scratches on the base, sitting in his living room. I called him right away, told him to unplug it, to throw it out, to destroy it, but he just laughed it off. Said it was working fine until 2 days later, when his neighbors called to report the smell. He'd been found sitting on his couch, eyes open, dried blood under his nose. No signs of struggle. The TV was still on. The police listed it as a sudden cardiac arrest. They didn't mention what was on the screen, but I know what it was, because when I moved out a month later, the landlord asked if I wanted to keep the mail that had come for me. There was one box, no return address, no markings. I opened it. Inside was a single TV remote, wrapped in tissue paper. The buttons were worn smooth, and across the top, scratched in with something sharp, were 3 words, "Watch with me." I threw it in the dumpster. But sometimes when I'm up late and the lights are off, my phone screen flickers, and for a split second I see that same static, the faint outline of a room, a couch, and someone sitting there, waiting, It started as a good deal. Too good, really. A 2012 Honda Accord, clean title, low mileage, listed for $1,500. The photos looked perfect. Sunlight hitting the paint just right, clean seats, even a little air freshener hanging from the mirror. The ad said, "Need to sell fast. Cash only, serious buyers only." I was buying it for my son, who just turned 18. He'd saved all summer, washing dishes at a diner, and this was supposed to be his first car. I texted the number. A man replied almost instantly, "Hey, name's Rick. Car's at my place, about 30 minutes out of town. You can come tonight if you want." It was already getting dark, but I didn't want to lose the deal. So I grabbed the cash, told my wife I'd be back by 10, and drove out. The address led me down a long country road, lined with pine trees that swallowed the light. No street lamps, no cars, just endless shadows and the hum of my tires on gravel. Finally, I saw a mailbox with the number 289 painted on it. The house was set back off the road, almost hidden behind tall weeds. No lights on, just one dim glow from what looked like a window in the garage. I parked, texted Rick, "Here." No reply. After a minute, I got out, crunching over dead leaves toward the house. The front porch sagged slightly under my weight. When I knocked, the door drifted open on its own. "Hello?" No answer. The air inside was cold, not from AC, but from emptiness. Dust floated in the flashlight beam from my phone. I stepped inside, calling again. That's when I noticed something strange. There were footprints on the floor, muddy, leading deeper into the hallway, and they weren't mine. I followed them slowly until I reached the living room. It was almost empty, just a recliner facing the wall. And on that wall, a large rectangular space where a picture or TV had been removed. The air smelled like rust and motor oil. "Rick?" A noise came from the garage, metal clanging, then scraping. I turned toward it. The door to the garage was cracked open, a thin line of light cutting across the floor. Something moved in there. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'm here about the Honda." No answer. I pushed the door open. At first, I thought it was a repair shop. Tools hung from the walls, chains dangled from the ceiling, and the smell of oil was stronger here. But then I saw what was on the workbench: a pile of car parts, doors, bumpers, engines, dozens of them, and pinned to the wall above them, license plates, rows of them. Different states, different years. My flashlight caught something shiny on the far wall, a set of keys hanging neatly from nails, each labeled in black marker Civic. Camry, Accord, Accord, sold. That's when I heard it, the faint creak of a floorboard behind me. I turned fast, scanning the dark, but the door I came through had closed, only a sliver of light from under it. Then the sound came again, not from behind, from above. A soft scrape. Like something crawling in the rafters, I stepped back toward the door. It wouldn't budge. Locked from the other side. Then the garage lights flickered on by themselves, one after another, and I realized I wasn't alone. Across the room, behind a row of car parts, a shape was standing, not moving, just watching. "Rick," I whispered. He didn't respond, just tilted his head slightly, like he was curious. The shadows hid his face, but I could see his hands. They were gloved, and in one of them was something small, a remote. He pressed a button. The blinds on the window behind me snapped shut at once. Like a trap, that sound broke my paralysis. I lunged for the side door, slammed my shoulder into it until the wood cracked. The lock gave way, and I stumbled outside into the cold air. I ran to my car, started it, and tore down that dirt road, gravel spraying behind me. I didn't look back until I hit the highway. Even then, I could still see that dim yellow light glowing from the house in my rearview mirror, steady like an eye that never blinked. I went straight to the police. They sent a patrol car out to the address. When they came back, one of the officers looked pale. He said, "There's nothing there." The house was empty, the windows boarded up, no electricity, no furniture. But in the garage, they found something hidden behind a sheet of plywood. A small room inside were dozens of photographs pinned to the wall. Some of people smiling next to cars, others not smiling. And one of them was me standing in that garage, from behind, like someone had been there watching me the whole time. The police never found him. That's what they told me a week after they raided the property. The man calling himself Rick had vanished, like he'd never existed at all. The phone number he used was a burner. The address was registered to no one. But the evidence they did find still keeps me awake at night. When they pulled the plywood off that wall in the garage, it opened into a narrow stairwell that led down into the ground, a kind of hidden basement. No light switch, no railing, just concrete and darkness. At the bottom was a single bulb hanging from a wire and a small metal chair sitting in the middle of the room. The walls around it were covered in hundreds of photographs, every inch. Photos printed on cheap glossy paper, the kind you get from instant printers. Each one showed a person standing in that same living room I'd seen upstairs. Different people, different expressions, some smiling nervously, some looking afraid, some crying, all of them holding car keys. The officers counted nearly 60 photographs, and then, at the far corner, they found a final section, one wall, different from the rest. These photos were larger, sharper, and taken from angles that made them feel wrong, too close, too deliberate. One officer described them as portraits of fear. The last photo was the one that made him sick. It was me, standing in the garage, phone light shining on my face, taken from somewhere high up, maybe the rafters. The timestamp on the back said 8:47 p.m. That was minutes before I'd even realized someone was there. But that wasn't the worst part. When forensics scanned the negatives, they found traces of fingerprints. They belonged to multiple people, at least 4. None of them matched anyone in any database. They also found something else in the corner of that basement. A stack of car parts tagged with names. Each tag matched one of the people in the photos. And each one had a note underneath, written in thin, uneven handwriting. They wanted a car. I gave them a ride. The local paper ran a small piece about it. Authorities investigate Craigslist car scam. No arrests, no suspects. They sealed the property, boarded it up, but about 2 months later, I got a voicemail. No number, no caller ID. Just static, and then a faint voice, a whisper. "Hey, it's Rick. You forgot your keys." Click, I blocked the number, changed my phone, changed everything. Still, sometimes when I walk through a parking lot or stop at a red light, I swear I catch glimpses of those same headlights in the mirror. 2 beams burning steady, never blinking, never swerving. And if I look too long, I swear I can see someone in the driver's seat, just sitting there, watching. Back in 2002, Craigslist was still new. It felt more like a digital garage sale than the hunting ground it would later become. You could buy old furniture, trade tools, find bandmates, even make friends. That's what I told myself when I found the ad. Used hockey net, $20, good condition, bring a truck. My son had just started playing pee-wee hockey, and we'd been looking for one for weeks. It was posted by someone named Paul. He lived only 40 minutes away. I emailed him, and he replied within minutes. Yep, still available. I'll be in the garage when you get here. Come after 8 p.m. No red flags. People were always home after work, right? So that evening, I loaded up the truck and headed out. The address took me to an older neighborhood, the kind where the houses sat far apart, surrounded by trees that blocked out the moonlight. The garage light was on when I pulled up. I could see the faint outline of a net propped up inside, exactly as described. I called out, "Hey, Paul?" No answer. I knocked on the frame, and the door slid open just enough to reveal the rest of the garage. The hockey net was there, but it looked different now. Torn, bent, covered in something dark that glistened under the bulb. There were drag marks. They say Craigslist has changed, that it's safer now. Fewer scams, fewer traps, fewer nightmares. But if you scroll long enough, late enough, you'll still find them posts with no replies, no reviews, no trace of who made them, just an address, a price that's too low, and a promise that always sounds a little too perfect. I learned that the hard way. Because every one of these stories, the secret shopper, the babysitting gig, the car sale, the free TV, the Honda Accord, the photo wall, the hockey net, they all came from the same source. One account, same writing style, same phrasing at the end of each post. Serious inquiries only. Come alone. The police never made the connection, but I did. Every ad, every seller, every smiling stranger, all traced back to the same email chain, same IP address, same pattern. Whoever they are, or whatever they don't post for money. They post for people. I didn't want to believe that until a few months ago. I was scrolling late at night, half asleep, and a listing popped up near the top of the page. TV stand, free to a good home, pick up after 9 p.m. I almost laughed. Same phrasing, same time. But then I looked closer. The photo wasn't of a TV stand. Not really. It was a blurry picture of a room. Dim light, cheap carpet, shadows stretching toward the lens. And there was something small in the corner of the frame, a reflection in the glass door of a cabinet, a face, not smiling, just watching. The kind of face you only recognize once. It was mine. I closed the browser instantly, unplugged my laptop, but when I opened it again the next day, the ad was gone. No trace in my history, no screenshot, nothing, like it had never existed. Since then, I keep getting strange emails, each one from a different sender, each one with the same subject line. Still interested? Sometimes there's a photo attached, a dark room, a shadow, a reflection in a mirror, and sometimes it's a sound file, static, then breathing. Once I heard something else underneath, a whisper I could barely make out. You came looking for a deal. Now the deal is looking for you. After that, I stopped opening them, stopped using Craigslist, stopped buying secondhand anything. But no matter how many times I block the senders or change my email, they always find me again. Sometimes it's not even online anymore. A flyer on a streetlight, a card slipped under my door, a sticker on the back of a park bench. Always the same words, free item, pick up after 9. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's something else. But every time I see one, I think about all those people who just wanted a bargain, a car, a job, a quick sale, and instead found something waiting for them, something patient, something hungry. And if you ever see an ad like that, a post that sounds too good to be true, just remember, you're not the first person to answer it. You're just the next one on the list. Because some listings, they don't want to sell you anything. They want to find you. And when they do, they never stop watching.